Every single day, the world spends billions of dollars on oil. Not pounds, not euros, not yuan, dollars. And here's the crazy part. That didn't happen by accident. It happened because of one secret agreement, signed in the desert in 1974. This is the story of the petrodollar, the financial system that shaped the modern world, and why, for the first time in half a century, it's starting to crack. To understand how this system was born, we need to go back to 1971. After World War II, the world needed stability. So the major powers agreed on a simple rule. The U.S. dollar would be the world's reserve currency, and every dollar would be backed by gold. Any country holding dollars could exchange them for actual gold at a fixed rate. This was called the Bretton Woods system, and it made the dollar the most trusted currency on the planet. There was just one problem. America was spending far more than it had. Wars, social programs, Cold War competition. The government was printing money at a pace its gold reserves couldn't keep up with. Other countries started to notice. They began lining up, demanding their gold back. So on August 15, 1971, President Nixon made a decision that would change everything. He announced that the U.S. would no longer exchange dollars for gold. Just like that, the dollar was backed by nothing. No gold, no commodity. Just faith in the American government. And faith, at that moment, was running very low. Then came October 1973. Egypt and Syria launched a surprise military offensive against Israel. The U.S. sided with Israel, sending weapons and supplies. In retaliation, Arab oil-producing nations, organized as OPEC, cut off oil exports to America entirely. The result was catastrophic. Oil prices jumped from around $3 a barrel to nearly $12. Gas stations ran empty. Lines stretched around entire city blocks. The American economy was in shock. So now the U.S. was dealing with three crises at once: a dollar untethered from gold, rising inflation, and the world's most critical resource being used as a weapon against them. Something had to change. Enter Henry Kissinger, America's Secretary of State. He flew to Saudi Arabia with a proposition. The message was essentially this: you have the largest oil reserves on the planet, which makes you enormously powerful and enormously vulnerable. You need protection. We need leverage. Let's help each other. The terms of the deal were straightforward. Saudi Arabia would agree to sell its oil exclusively in U.S. dollars. The surplus revenue would be reinvested into U.S. Treasury bonds and American financial markets. In return, the United States would provide military protection, sell advanced weapons to the kingdom, and guarantee Saudi Arabia's security against any external threat. Saudi Arabia accepted in 1974. The rest of OPEC followed within a year. The petrodollar was born. Here's why this arrangement was so powerful. It created a self-reinforcing loop with three moving parts. Part 1, global dollar demand. Since oil, the commodity every industrialized nation must have, was priced exclusively in dollars, every country on earth needed to acquire dollars just to keep their lights on and their factories running. Japan, Germany, India, Brazil, it didn't matter. You want energy. You need dollars first. Part 2, petrodollar recycling. Oil exporting nations suddenly had more dollars than they could possibly spend domestically. So those surplus dollars flowed back into the United States, into treasury bonds, into banks, into financial markets. This process became known as petrodollar recycling, and it meant America was essentially getting a constant stream of foreign investment just by being the currency of oil. Part 3, American financial dominance. All that recycled money allowed the U.S. government to borrow cheaply, run large deficits, and fund its military, the same military that protected the oil fields that kept the whole system running. It was a closed loop. America didn't need to produce or export the oil. It just needed the world to keep buying oil in dollars. By the 1980s, the petrodollar system had made the dollar the undisputed center of global finance. Over 70% of the world's foreign exchange reserves were held in dollars. U.S. Treasury bonds were the world's preferred safe asset. And because so much of global trade, banking, and debt was denominated in dollars, access to the dollar system became something no country could afford to lose. That gave America a weapon more powerful than any military asset: financial exclusion. If a government did something Washington disapproved of, the U.S. could effectively freeze them out of the global economy, blocking access to dollar transactions, cutting off bank connections, and making international trade nearly impossible. This became the foundation of the modern sanctions regime. And for countries that try to move away from the dollar altogether, the historical record is uncomfortable. In 2000, Iraq announced it would begin pricing its oil in euros rather than dollars. 3 years later, a U.S.-led coalition invaded the country. After the fall of Saddam Hussein, Iraq's oil sales returned to being denominated in dollars. In Libya, Muammar Gaddafi proposed a gold-backed Pan-African currency, the gold dinar, intended to replace the dollar in African oil trade. Libya reportedly held over 140 tons of gold to support the plan. In 2011, NATO intervened militarily. Gaddafi was killed, and the gold dinar proposal disappeared with him. Venezuela, sitting atop the world's largest proven oil reserves, launched a state-backed cryptocurrency in 2018 designed to bypass the dollar system and circumvent U.S. sanctions. The project failed to gain traction internationally. U.S. sanctions intensified, Venezuelan oil exports were blockaded, and in early 2026, a U.S. military operation led to the capture of President Maduro. The Trump administration subsequently announced plans to rebuild Venezuela's oil sector with American companies, putting the Western Hemisphere's largest oil reserve back into the dollar-aligned order. Were these interventions purely about the dollar? Almost certainly not. Each situation had its own layers: weapons programs, human rights concerns, regional geopolitics. But the pattern across decades is difficult to dismiss entirely. For 50 years, no country had the size, the influence, or the ambition to seriously challenge the petrodollar's grip. Then came 2022. When Russia invaded Ukraine, the United States and its allies froze nearly $300 billion of Russia's foreign currency reserves, money Russia had legally accumulated and deposited in Western financial institutions for decades. Simultaneously, major Russian banks were cut off from the SWIFT international payments network. The message it sent to every other government on earth was unmistakable. The dollars you hold are only safe as long as Washington says they are. The reaction was swift. China began reducing its holdings of U.S. Treasury bonds from a peak of over $1.3 trillion down to around $600 billion, redirecting purchases toward gold instead. Russia and China expanded bilateral trade in their own currencies. Brazil and China signed agreements to settle trade in yuan and reals. India began paying for Russian oil in rupees. And perhaps most symbolically, Saudi Arabia, the country whose 1974 agreement created the petrodollar, publicly signaled it was open to accepting payment for oil in currencies other than the dollar. The numbers reflect a genuine shift. The dollar's share of global foreign exchange reserves has declined from around 72% in 2001 to roughly 57% today. Central banks globally added over 1,000 tons of gold to their reserves in 2024 alone. The Chinese yuan, while still a minor player, now represent approximately 2% of global reserves, up from essentially 0 10 years ago. And then there is a structural threat that no geopolitical move can reverse: the transition away from oil itself. In 2025, roughly 1 in every 4 cars sold globally was electric. As the world's dependence on fossil fuels declines, so too does the structural necessity of the dollar system built around them. The petrodollar is not dead. Let's be precise about that. The dollar still accounts for around 88% of all foreign exchange transactions and roughly half of all global trade invoicing. No single currency, not the yuan, not the euro, not gold, not any cryptocurrency, comes close to replacing it. The infrastructure of global finance was built around the dollar over 5 decades, and that doesn't change overnight. But for the first time since 1974, the system has real competition, not from one powerful rival, but from dozens of smaller moves, bilateral agreements, and structural economic shifts, all gradually pulling in the same direction. Whether that leads to a genuine transition in global monetary order, or whether the dollar reasserts its dominance, is one of the defining questions of this decade. What's certain is this: the arrangement that has quietly shaped global finance since a desert meeting 50 years ago is no longer taken for granted, and that all by itself is a historic change.